and then they put it in stacks,
And then you
like
move it.
pyramid stacks.
They mix it.
And
Matter
then
of
you
fact,
kinda-
Fitzmeyer's, we had Fitzmeyer's gravel pit, and then we had Helms gravel pit.
But you have to go ahead and mix it. It takes several days to get that mixed.
Yeah, you have to go, you can't just go in there and scoop up a load of, you're either scooping up a load of stone or you're scooping up a load of silt. The sand, you might as well say, sand.
Did the town of Fremont used to mix stuff? Does anybody know?
Well, they used to
They used to-
Fremont used to grind their own,
Yeah.
make their own
They used to have
crushed
their own-
gravel.
Yeah, they used to have
So
their
that
own-
was already mixed up. And then they went and got out of the program and
And they did it the same way. It come out a small conveyor where they had to keep, they'd only get like 2 or 3 bucket loads and they'd have to move it
Yep.
and dump it into a pile, but that way it gets rolled over and gets mixed. It's like mixing sand with salt. You can spread out a load of salt, of sand, and dump some salt on top of it and push it in your bin. Or you can roll it over and over and over 10 times into the bin by mixing it together.
I had one other issue I wanted to bring up. I brought it up last month, and it was with somebody from Alexco Land Services, and in regards to some comments that were being made to town residents, somewhere in the line of the windmills are coming, you can't stop them. And I was just wondering, I want to see what the board thought. Is there any way the town attorney could look into that? Because I think it's a little misleading, because if somebody was in the middle of the road on the windmills, whether they wanted them or not, and somebody's telling you it doesn't matter whether you sign or not, they're coming, that's a little misleading. And I just wanted to see what anybody thought, what you think about that.
It's a good question for the attorney.
yeah, because that is the comment that was
Who's
made.
the individual that's doing that?
Well, there's been a couple of individuals. I'll
Richard
let-
Rico was the last one. He stopped at my house. I haven't signed anything yet. And when I said that I had some questions that I couldn't answer, his comment to me was, it's coming regardless if you sign or not. So I suggest you sign, and that's when I asked him to leave. So,
And I spoke to 4 or 5 other residents that have said something initially the same with Richard Torbach when he was doing it, so I don't know, maybe Chip could comment on that, or last month, I forget your name,
It's Justin.
Justin, you were gonna comment on that? I asked you last month about that, and you were gonna give us some information on that this month?
Yes, I'm happy to address that. First off, we appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Mm-hmm.
That we handled it very swiftly. The person that you commented on, it had a bit of a different story. You know, I think it would be nice to be able to talk to those, and we have reached out to some individuals that had contact with those persons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially where it stands. You know, we've generally found that those who are not inclined to sign on board, this is in coverage of the town of Fremont's town law. So in order to get out and address the provisions of the law, you know, we enlisted the support of some additional persons, right? Who, and those that were in question, immediately as soon as that was brought to our attention,
Mm-hmm.
we took them off. I'm not sure who the gentleman is in the back of the room, but if he could stick around after this meeting, we'd love to talk to him as well.
But Chip, you can understand where I'm coming from too. Another issue with that is how many people already signed based on that information, you know, so that, you know, somebody thought, well, if you were, like I say, if you were thinking, geez, do I want them or not? And somebody makes a comment, well, I guess I might as well take the money. So I'm just a little concerned about people that might have already signed. Are you gonna, you know, go back to people that these 2 gentlemen have signed up and, you know, maybe give them the option that, hey, this is what's going on, or, you know, to give them the option to opt out if they choose to?
You know, I will. We'll
Okay,
do
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, I'll make the commitment. We'll go back. Remember, this is voluntary
Mhm.
for the individual. It's
Yes.
no requirement. As long as we make a good faith effort, right? We make the effort, they're not required to sign. So I think in order to shore that up, I'm happy to do that.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, happy to put it in the notes. I'll give you a report on it next month, or if you'd like one sooner. Take a little bit of time to track everyone down, but happy to do that.
determine which people that you send letters to for good neighbor agreements or whatever?
Yeah, so it's a function of sound power levels that are modeled, or sound pressure levels that are modeled at the residence. That if they were over a certain amount projected, that we were required by town law to offer a good neighbor agreement for those persons to sign. I'll further that a little bit. You guys will see if you look at the testimony that was provided tonight, the rebuttals. We've remodeled the sound throughout the project. Two things have happened. You guys know in the town of Fremont, we're only using the Nordex turbines because it has a serrated trailing edge, which you require within the law. Number one. Number two, when we ran the original models, we didn't know exactly where we were going to put the GMASs within the other towns. So we modeled everything with the GMASs, which is a higher sound output level than the Nordexes. You guys remember some months back. So everything you saw in the testimony and the amendment was modeled with the GMASs, which are about 3.5 dB louder than the Nordexes. So if you take the time to go back and look at the maps, a lot of yellow and orange squiggly lines, but you'll see a dramatic decrease in the overall sound pressure levels, which is what's at the recipient throughout the town of Fremont, right? So just a little bit of additional information.
But wouldn't that modeling also change depending on what time of the year you do it, whether there's leaves on the trees or farmers are out in the field cutting, baling, all those things would make a difference in the modeling though, correct?
Yeah, it absolutely would. Yes, we take that. That's why we do sound studies in the fall, leaf on, and we do them leaf off as well.
Okay.
In order to capture those, and leave the microphones out. You know, all that's in the original application. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages to review if you're inclined to take a look at it. But it's very exhaustive review in order to capture the current conditions and long-term conditions within the town. So you get ambient, you get the tractors, you get the nighttime, the daytime, leaf on, leaf off, and in different areas of the community.
I was just curious because, just to give an example, okay? 3 residents, A, B, and C. Resident A and resident C received that type of information. And resident B, who's in between the two, whose property would be closer, didn't receive that. So I was just curious of how that was laid out, of who got what, when, and how. And the lay of the land is pretty much all the same for the 3. I just couldn't quite understand how that all came about.
Yeah, so then you get into it's a cumulative noise issue, right? So when you pass that, I think it's 42 dB threshold, that 42 level at the recipient. So perhaps B is in the middle, is in a bowl area. Perhaps they're surrounded by trees. Perhaps the turbines by A and C, you know, that there's other turbines and strings behind them. There's a lot of factors that play into it. But I mean, through the project, there's 2 things. There's the model, 3 things, sorry. The model that we've updated and provided tonight. The second would be the use of the Nordex's turbines within in the town of Fremont, as we committed to doing. And the third would be within that testimony and our amendment is a complaint resolution plan that basically if someone has concerns, the methodology, if there are concerns, that we would address those concerns, determine if there's anything going on with the turbine. If you find there's not, and through that methodology reaches a point where we would put microphones at the receptor for a period of time to actually determine if they're exceeding those thresholds. Yeah.
So going back to the ABC scenario that Dean, what if, say, customer or resident B didn't sign a good neighbor policy, but A and B did? So you have to maintain a certain setbacks and sound levels for B, or do you say, well, 2 of the 3? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's sound level maximums and there's setbacks maximums and minimums, depending on whether the land and the property owner has signed an agreement or has not signed an
But
agreement.
there's a few of my neighbors who haven't signed, so I'm just wondering, what are your obligations to appease everything up there?
Right, so if the sound level is above the minimums within the town of Fremont town law, then there's a covenant where we're to approach those persons to offer them an agreement. They're not obligated to sign with us, but we have to approach them, we document it, we keep a log of who we talk to when we talk to them. And they may decide that they're not going to sign, they simply don't want to, right?
Okay.
That's fine, because the town of Fremont has the level at which we approach persons, and then it has the minimum allowable sound level within the town. So we work very hard to ensure and model that we don't exceed that, okay? So let's just say, just for theoretically, that for some reason, we do, right? So what do you do if you exceed it? And that landowner B, thank you, that landowner B believes that you've gone beyond the town law, the maximum level at that home, the exterior wall. So there's a complaint resolution process where we would go out, assess the turbine, the recipient, have a conversation with them, try to enlist their support in helping us determine when do you hear the sound, what kind of sound is it, certain times of the day, the night, is it this type of sound, that type of sound, to capture all that information, to try to determine if there's something that might be going on with the turbine. So let's say there's not. Take it all worst case. That's okay? Okay. So we would then move forward. We would reach a point where we would put microphones at that exterior of that house. We would leave those microphones in place. For a while, we would take that data, right? We would filter through it and then see if we're exceeding the noise levels allowable within the town of Fremont. I just keep walking down the line. Let's say we do. There's an issue. A couple things we can do. One is there are adjustments within the turbine itself. So you can actually, it's a power level output where you'd reduce the amount of generation from that turbine. So you can reduce the amount of generation, which reduces the sound pressure level from the turbine, which then decreases the sound power from the turbine, sound pressure at the recipient. We can do that as well. And if I just keep going down the line, what if that doesn't work? Like ultimately, the person at that house B can bring this to the town board's attention, right? And there are penalties that would be enacted on us. And in the absolute worst cases of all worst cases, and you can't mitigate it, the Department of Public Service can step in and require us to shut down the turbine until we can find some suitable mitigation, right? And if you carry that completely out, the DPS can have us take the turbine down, right? Yeah, sorry for the
No.
10-minute answer. It's exhaustive.
Like I said, there's some of my neighbors who don't
Yeah.
have a contract, and
Yeah.
they talk to me, and we talk.
Sure,
So,
they may be below, so that sounds like they're below that.
and they're gonna be close to the turbine.
Yeah, if you can stick around, I can talk to you more.
Okay.
Get your info.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
We have a guy over to Howard that has a turbine out in back of his house, and in the afternoon, they shut the turbine off
Mhm.
because it casts a shadow on his house.
Yeah.
Is it wise to install a turbine that's gotta be reduced because you're losing power output?
Well, it depends on how much power they generate, right? There's a lot of financial factors that are involved.
You don't wanna run it at 50% when it could be doing 100% if
Sure, exactly. You're absolutely right. Yeah, but on the flip side, if there are laws that require us that we can only work within certain parameters, then we have to meet the requirements of the law. Right, so we do a lot of front-end modeling.
that are smaller size, lower output.
Well, we do a lot of modeling, right? We do a lot of projections, a lot of modeling that's been used before, right? They're known models in order to avoid that kind of situation that I just described. Sure.
And the people that Lexo Land may have contacted, they might be in a sensitive area that may be noisier?
Well, okay, yeah, so it wouldn't be noisier. It would surpass the dB level within town law that triggers a requirement that we approach that homeowner.
Or it could be shadow flicker too. Or
Yeah, exactly.
Setbacks.
Yeah,
also.
sure thing, yeah, exactly right, yeah.
Oh, can we address the change in the receptor IDs on your new modeling?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I think we addressed that in an IR.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
for the town residents that know their receptor IDs, and then they go and look and they go, have been changed.
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, it was just that, I think it was just, one group didn't talk to the other about the receptor IDs, and we also included, like a number of additional receptors as well, right? So we added them, the numbers changed, it was not intentional, and we provided a chart within the interrogatory request, the chart that indicates the old receptor and the new receptor. So anyone that's concerned can simply look at the chart, cross-reference, and then they'll know exactly where they are. One, also there are maps that are provided and can be provided that have the receptor ID listed on the map. And they're available within our rebuttal and the applications online. So they can download the map, download the image, and they can find their receptor, and they'll be able to, if they know where their, you know, where their house is on the map, they can see exactly what that receptor ID number is. Yeah.
Chip, I've got just one more quick question. When you're approaching people on a good neighbor or a lease, I mean, are you informing them that you might not be able to meet the town decibel level and shadow flicker that was put in place to protect them? Are they being notified of that?
Yeah, so it's not that so there's two levels, right? There's a level at which we're required to go out and speak with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the minimum, or let's say it's the maximum sound level at any receptor.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually two levels. So we explained to them that you're being approached because you're at I think it's a 42 dB level
Mm-hmm.
at that household is why we're talking to you, or for some other exceedance, right? One thing that the town does require is that any of those receptors that are over those levels, right, projected over, be it shadow or sound or whatever it might be, that we have to provide information to the town board as to who those persons are.
Oh.
So they'll have a record as well.
But you give that after the process is done, the record?
As we're working through it, that we can actually show, well,
Oh.
yeah, I mean, there's, I think at the finalization, I don't know that there's any set date
We've
on
not
when we
received
have.
I was gonna say, you guys haven't received nothing.
So we received
No.
nothing.
So we'll put it together and show you,
Do you go out and tell person A and B, like your shadow flicker will be 100 hours per year and the town law is 20 and you're signing this agreement?
yeah, they should explain
So they're saying each person and then.
Explain to the person, but a couple things have happened, right? So we've changed the, you'll see a difference in the sound levels within the town itself. So if you told someone, if you go, persons that we went out to with a 42 dB limit, that triggered us to just go out and say, hey, you guys, we're approaching you because there's a turbine and we're gonna exceed this 42 limit that the town has placed in the town law. You guys aren't obligated to sign. We are obligated through the town law to approach you and let you know. Those persons, many of those who are approached at that level, I'm fairly certain now, they're actually below the threshold as we've been remodeled with the Nordexes only in the town of Fremont. So those things change, right? Those things change. You'll note too, we've had a couple shifts in response to some of the issues that were brought up by the town, that we've had some shifts within the turbines themselves. Right, they might be 20 feet, 30 feet. I think we had one that was around 1,200 foot shift. And again, that's within in the documents that have been posted online on the Department of Public Service website.
Does anyone have anything else?
This is, no, I'm listening to what you're saying, and, here's a just curious thing now. Say somebody signed, you're saying that when you go out and you talk to someone with the good neighbor agreement, that you're gonna give them the information, shadow flicker, and so on and so forth. But how would you have known, like, the people that signed the good neighbor agreement day one, when you didn't even know what turbines you were using, then their information would change?
Yeah, I would think, well, I guess you put it in the context.
Would they have, what I'm saying, would they